Well, yes, lifting and loads of pounds and everything I spent on road now. So. You not well, partly because of that. All week. I talked about to my scheduled appointment. That went fine. It was better than others. Days. I can't believe we were very excited about moving to Kentucky. That's a lot of folks to get excited. And they're just getting to it. You just get to it. They got to it. I never expected them. They said, well, either be in a.
Jim, can you hear us?
I can.
There you go, thank you.
Randy Szymanski, are you on with us?
And nobody will. Morning. Welcome to Land Use and Information Committee meeting for March 5th, 2024. Before we get going, I would like to take a moment of silence. I understand that Don Shell, supervisor, passed away yesterday. I'd like to take a moment of silence for Don. Thank you. Notice has been posted in accordance with Wisconsin statute 19.84 open meeting law. This time we'll take general public comments. If you have any comments that go along with anything on the agenda, we'll wait till it comes to that. Are there any general public comments at this time? If not, we'll go. Approval of the agenda order.
Make a motion to approve the.
Motion by Ms. Anderson.
Second.
By Mr. Conroy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of the minutes of February 2nd, 2024 meeting.
Make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we'll move on to the public hearing. Will Jason please read the public hearing notice?
Notice of public hearing, state of Wisconsin, County of Burnett, Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 at 9 a.m. at the Burnett County Government Center, Room 16, Town of Menan, Cyber, Wisconsin, regarding the following: Burnett County Land Use Shoreline Protection Ordinances. Map Amendment MAP 2401 Hamilton to rezone Government Lot 7 in Section 20, Town 41 North, Range 14 West, Town of Webb Lake, from F1 RR1 Forestry Residential Recreation to RR3 Residential Recreation Zoning District. Zoning change requested by Richard and Shirley Hamilton.
Can we speak up just a hair, please?
Here, back here.
I don't have that speaker on. Number 2, map amendment MAP 2402 Rogan to rezone the south half of the southwest quarter, the northeast quarter in section 28, town 40 north, range 14 west, town of Scott, from RR3 residential recreation to A2 agricultural residential zoning district. Zoning change requested by Scott and Stacy Rogan. Map amendment MAP 2403 Dornbush to rezone the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter in section 22, town 37 north, range 18 west, town of Trade Lake, from RR3 residential recreation to A4 ag forestry residential zoning district. Zoning change requested by David and Louise Dornbush. Number 4, conditional use permit CUP 2403 Karachinitz. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Anderson, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Mark Karachinitz has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use Code of Ordinances to construct a 15-unit campground over the next 3 years, located at 20683 Jimmy Carter Road and 14192 Old Jalton Road in the F1 zoning district, southeast quarter, the northeast quarter, and the northeast quarter, the southeast quarter, section 28, town 37 north, range 19 west. Number 5, conditional use permit CUP 2404 Baglio. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Swiss, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Diane Baglio has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances to allow a camping unit for up to 3 years on the parcel located at 7116 Hill Drive in the RR3 zoning district, lot 1, CSM volume 9, page 263, section 27, town 41 north, range 16 west.
Thank you, Jason. First, one on the public hearing, rezone request, map 2401 Hamilton. Rezone from F1 RR1 to RR3. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Just looking here, the Hamilton is here, Mark Krause from Wagner Survey, I was gonna represent him for
The
the
mic's not on. Hold on a second, I don't know if that mic's on.
copies of the maps. Or you have zoning maps in front of you, then two from the county.
Yep.
What we have is a 14-acre parcel Mr. Hamilton would like to sell. It's between the creek and his property lines.
That mic working?
I'll speak out. And a portion of the northwest corner is forestry. Rest of it is wetland conservancy or RR1. There isn't a parcel on Webb Lake that is forestry. Everything on Webb Lake that borders Webb Lake itself is actually RR1 except for this parcel. And so it's just a little corner there. And that's basically the high ground out there. And we're looking to have that whole piece there. And this parcel is intended to be sold to the neighboring property owner too. So if you have any questions, Mr. Hamilton's here to answer any questions if you might have them too.
Committee have any questions of the applicant?
Does it, Mark, is that parcel is mapped? I'm just trying to see at this scale, but does it have access to a public road?
What?
Is
No, it does not.
It does not. Oops, sorry. Could have turned it on.
No, it does not. It does not.
Anyway, is it the intent to accrete it to another parcel?
Yes.
So somebody else will then own it,
Yes.
contiguous with this? Okay, that's what I kind of thought, but I was speculating.
Any other questions?
Mr. Hamilton's house is on the other side of the creek and on.
Yeah, the applicant owns to the east and has, no issue. And there isn't any way to cross the creek or the conservancy
Right.
as a practical matter.
It's a wide wide swamp bottom too. It's like 500-600 feet wide in most places. So
Any other questions from the committee? If not, I'll open the public hearing at this time. Are there any public comments on this application? Hearing no. Public hearing will now be closed. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to rezone the parcel from F1 RR1 district to RR3 with the conditions the staff recommendations. I guess they're not conditions. They're included in the motion. A survey map to be completed by 10/1/24 to divide the parcel. Follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity.
Like to second that motion. Motion by Ms. Anderson. Second. By Mr. Albert. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Sheminski, are you on? Randy, are you on? Mr. Blumberg,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton, are you on?
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you. Mr. Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Rezone request map 2401 for Hamilton has been approved. Next, we'll move on to rezone request map 2402 Rogan. Rezone from RR3 to A2. Applicant here? Please state your name and
Scott David Rogan,
say what you,
and my wife Stacy Rogan. We have what we bought was a cabin with acreage that's forested, and now we're expanding it for animals to raise for meat and everything else. We recently had a fire in June, lost the house, rebuilt, and part of the note on the permit was to rezone to Ag1.
any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify, we're rezoning you from an RR district where we could do a conditional use permit for a few animals to a A2 district, we call it.
Okay.
So the question I have, looking at the property, it's fairly level on top, but they've got lots of
Drop off.
really steep kettles and
Yeah.
wetlands at the bottom and, you know, so really, how many animals are we talking about?
Right now,
What would be your plans? How large?
our plans are to expand quail. Probably under 100. For chickens. Yeah, they are caged. But we do have chickens and ducks
Rabbits and goats.
and rabbits and goats.
So
But total, a number of, I'm looking at like really manure management and, you know, whether you're
Yeah.
fencing.
We have 12 goats
Yeah.
and they're the little Nigerian
Right, and
dwarfs.
they're not a.
They're about
big
the
issue.
size of a house, a medium-sized dog.
I think what it sounds like is a little more than we usually do in our district, but it's not gonna, the concern is, once you're 20 acres in A2, you know, you could have, you're not limited on animal units, you are limited by the state and county regulations about manure management though. You know, and so would you be like fencing the entire boundary and intending? to let it
No.
go?
Right now, the way we do it, and our manure is not gonna go up, is we compost it
Okay.
right on that flat area.
Sure.
Plus, we have the
Field. to
field to the north of us that adjoins our neighbor, and that's just all grass, and
Okay.
if it gets a lot, we can move it up there and turn it into.
But that's off your property.
No, that's
Oh,
on our
it's on your
property.
Okay.
Yep. Half
If
of that
you,
field is
yeah,
ours.
if you look at the plot or the satellite map, you can see.
Yeah, I haven't probably been right on your property, but I've been on every other side of it, one
Yeah.
time or another. And so,
So half of
oh, yeah,
that field
yeah.
between us.
yeah, I
and the
see that
neighbor
little
is ours.
field, right?
And I
so-
spread some of the compost there to help the grass grow for.
Well, but you would be doing, as a condition of, we don't really condition or rezonings necessarily, but the requirements would be that you work with the Land and Water Division to make sure the manure is being managed, because you do have you have frontage on a nice little water body, Duran Lake. You've got there's some wetland, there's some really steep slopes where you probably don't want, well, goats could handle it, of course, but, you know, you really don't want livestock down in that bottom in that wetland either.
Yeah,
So-
all of our animals are caged to some extent.
Or fence, so, okay.
So,
Yeah, I think we need some clarity on that, because like,
yeah,
theoretically-
the reason why we
theoretically-
put in for the permit is that was put on our permit to build. There's recommendation to do this.
Yeah, I get that. So,
Cause
just,
I
I
believe
needed,
they saw the animals and went, hey, wait a second.
you know, the soils out there are, interesting Burnett County unique soil of some sand and then down a little ways clay,
And then
And-
also,
then more sand.
Yeah.
And it's really not wet, because when it's sloping like that, it won't limit water, but also don't want to have a lot of runoff going down those steep hills, like a
Correct.
manure pile on the edge of a steep slope or over
Yeah.
the bank or something.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of management needs to be done differently, and it sounds like you already are. So
Yeah.
Just kind of wanted to get clear on what we're
Yep,
doing.
yep.
Okay, I'm done grilling them.
Any other questions?
Not, I will open the public hearing this time. We have not had any call-ins, right? Okay, is there any public from the audience wish to make a comment on this rezone? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Committee wish to make a recommendation.
Yeah, cause you would be making a recommendation to county board for approval.
Right.
Right, I'd like to, let's take a look at the staff comments first.
Mhm.
You go by it already?
No,
There was two. It was, number one was, work with county, or work with conservation specialist. With conservation specialist on a nutrient management plan and fencing design for the property. Animals should not be located within blue-green zones on the map above, so there was that map in there. That basically showed the bottoms and the wet areas. And then follow all local, county, state and federal
Page 34.
requirements.
Pardon?
And then-
34.
I'm there, I caught up. I just wanted us to, formalize that before we made a motion. So I will make a motion to approve it following the two recommendations, and in this case, this is a condition of the rezoning. And, failure to follow them could result in us taking an action like this to reverse it, if that ever came up, okay? Be unlikely, be a legislative act by the entire county board that we'd ever get to that, but you need to know that's an option, okay? So with that.
Second that motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Craig, you're not finished.
Close enough, you led me just perfectly, so, the applicant has a question.
Can we get a copy of that map that he's talking about?
Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah, it just shows that what you and I were talking
Could have
about.
been emailed to you. Check your spam or
Oh,
junk folder.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just shows the areas we were talking about that are so steep and where there's wetlands.
Yeah.
Where you're already not doing much with them at all, so.
Yeah, we try and keep it alone.
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right track, but this just formalizes what we talked about. And so my motion is to approve the recommendation to rezone the county board to A2 with incorporating the two staff recommendations, which Jason just read.
I'll second that again.
Good. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. This is to approve the rezone from RR3 to A2 and be taken to county board for final approval. Mr. Sheminski, are you on?
We discuss. I just have one question. So with the rezone, if, the property is sold to somebody else, I mean, the kind of condition of the rezone would go along with that.
True, rezone is a legislative act, not a permit that we can put a reverter clause on.
Okay, I'm just trying to, like a conditional use would have allowed the opportunity to say X number of animals is a maximum, or you have to do this. Does the manure management plan address that?
Well, that doesn't have a maximum number, but it kicks in at 2 animal units.
Okay,
So if they have anything more than 2, they would have to have a,
And that's regardless of the zoning district.
yes.
okay,
So then I would think we would then, if it got to that point, let's say they had 20 animal units out there, staff would say, hey, don't have them in the wetland. Spread the manure somewhere else, they would go over all that with them.
so that offers some oversight and
Yes.
protection. Okay,
Now, is your question in regards to if they were to sell the property, would that condition go with the property then? That kind of where you're leading on that or not?
Kind of, because there can't be a condition on a rezone, but essentially the need for a management plan would apply to whoever owns it.
Correct.
Right, and it would, even if we didn't say what we said, we're
Yeah.
just making it clear on this
Okay.
one.
Hey, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Sheminski, are you on? Mr. Blumberg,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes,
Mr. Bickford, yes. The request to rezone from RR3 to A2 has been approved and will be sent to county board.
And you don't have to be at the county board meeting. I'll just take care of it.
Yeah,
Usually,
we checked your email, there's nothing in spam, we got nothing.
well, you wanna, before you run out of here, you wanna verify that the email address on here is correct?
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have rezone request map 2403 Dornbush, rezone from RR3 to A4. The applicant here.
Well, he knew the meeting was today because I met him at the property when I went out there to do my site visit. Talked to him. So,
He's not on.
so you can either try to proceed or you can postpone it to a future meeting.
I think in this case, because the town is supporting it and found it to be consistent with the plan, that we could proceed. It is a recommendation rather than a final decision today anyway. Do you want a motion to that effect or just
No.
consensus of the committee is good?
uh,
Anybody
I have
see
to
any
open
problem
up-
with it?
I have to open the public hearing first.
Yeah.
I have to open the public hearing first.
Sure.
Does anyone in the audience wish to make a comment on the rezone from RR3 to A2, A4? We have had a letter from the town board. And they approved the rezone. So if there's been no public comments, I'll close the public hearing at this time. How do you wish to make the motion? Here's Mr. Conroy.
I wasn't going that fast. I was just saying that we should proceed with the debate if there is any.
So this one, I had 3 staff recommendations. Number 1, work with county conservation specialists on nutrient management plan. Number 2, septic system be serviced and reported to the county by 6/1/24. Follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity.
Yeah, here again, I think that, this is reasonable, and as long as the person would be abiding by those 3 items, I think that would be acceptable.
Yeah, there's A2 on either side of this property already. A lot of agriculture in the town of Trade Lake as well.
Limited to just small animals? Can you put?
I'm sorry, we're in A4. I said A2. Sorry, but it's the same difference.
It'd be the same thing as just the last one we talked about. It would essentially open it up to ag, but he would still have to get a manure management plan after 2 animal units. I think right now, when I was out there, there was 15 goats, I believe, roughly, when I was out there. And I think he's already working with Sean, our conservation specialist, on manure management and stuff, so.
Did the goats want to climb on your truck?
No, they did not. They really followed the guy around really good. Wherever he walked, they just followed right around.
Well, it's getting to be people using goats for invasive species management like buckthorn and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And so it might be a niche form of ag that is pretty benign, a lot of benefit from it. You know, I will though, if no one else is going to.
I'd be happy to make the motion.
Speak already.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve, this request map 2403 Dornbush rezoned from RR3 to A4. Including the 3 staff recommendations. Number 1, work with conservation specialists on a nutrient management plan. Number 2, septic system to be serviced and reported to the county by 6/1/2024. And 3, follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity.
And this is a recommendation.
Can I motion?
This is a recommendation of the county board.
Check here a second.
I think Mr. Payton just did.
And a motion and a second. That was Mr. Sheminski. Mr. Blumberg,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Request to rezone from RR3 to A4 will go to county board. Thank you. Next, we have conditional use permit CUP 2403, Barachniks Campground. Is the applicant? State your name and what you.
Yeah, my name is Mark Karachinitz. Hello, everyone. This is really something new to me. Should I just explain the plans?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so we bought 80 acres probably around 3 years ago without the intention to maybe create a campground or something like that. But along the way, we decided it's me, my brother, and my dad. We're a family. We do everything together. So we decided to maybe create a campground. So basically, we were thinking, I spoke to Jason and said the maximum capacity can be 25. So we went for 15 small units under 500 square feet. Maybe someone had a wrong understanding. We did get a lot of hate for applying for this permit from the neighbors. However, what we wanted to do is it's 15 units. I don't know if we will ever do 15 because that's a lot. We just applied for this much, but there would be under 500 square feet units. It's a small, neat units for like, let's say 2 to 4 people. It's not a campground that we are used to where there's 200 people unattended by the lake or by the river. So we just wanted to make it nice because it's a really nice, wild area. We fell in love with this property when we first saw it, and we want to keep it as wild as it is. And it's not 5 or 10 acres, it's 80 acres. And a lot of people are worried about the fires and everything. Well, of course, I understand that's reasonable, but we will definitely follow the laws and rules and regulations, whatever the city says about the bonfires and everything. But traffic, I don't know if anyone will feel any more traffic because, like I said, it's if we ever do build 15, it's small units where 2 to 4 people would come and use it. And I mean, we want to keep it as wild as it is, clean as possible, and we have a pretty straightforward lot where there's no hills and downs and no wetlands. So we just asked for that permit. We're ready to comply with the city, with neighbors. We tried to make a potluck to get to know neighbors and explain them a little bit. Maybe there was a lot of rumors, different rumors, bad rumors, untruthful rumors. And again, we're not trying to create or get any enemies around us. We just want to do what we're in the right zone for. So I don't know if I know there will be questions. So if there are any, I can answer.
Any questions from the committee for the applicant?
Oh, excuse me, I do have some now, but I also want to reserve the right to recall the applicant after the public hearing, if we want to clarify some things or whatever, but the way you show it, it's kind of a minimalist plan you have now, then that's, you don't expect you to have a final plan at this point.
No, we do not.
But you're talking tents, are you talking like tent sites where people bring their own tents and take them when they go, or are you talking yurts or camper cabins or something like that?
Camper, it would be a stationary, not people coming with their stuff.
I think what you need to understand is the way we put that into the ordinance, correct me if I misstate this, Jason. But, those were intended to be remote, as the county forest does, where you are walking into the sites, you're not driving up to them necessarily.
Okay.
And more primitive, because we're trying to look at this forestry camping niche that we still provide. And like for the people in attendance, I should clarify that before we amended the ordinance, a campground without size limit or type of campers was a conditional use permit. We throttled that way back, but we didn't want to eliminate it entirely. The point being that the transient type campers, people come and go, camp for a couple of days, depart, somebody else comes, is what campgrounds traditionally were. And they have become essentially seasonal with large campers, more or less permanently there. I know you're not saying you're going to do that. We don't allow that either in forest. But if you wanted to, you know, we don't want to see you have a row of camper cabins like a little old fashioned motel either that people are driving up to. That's not what we provide either. So it's got to be very limited in access if it's not, you know, not the traditional campsite where somebody pulls in, stays for a couple of days and leaves. But it's not a seasonal, it's a transient sort of thing. Makes sense?
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's the way I understand it. So
Yeah, I mean, the wording says, with only temporary camping units and or rustic primitive sites, except that camping cabins, yurts not serviced by plumbing or electricity may be permitted by conditional use permit on rustic primitive sites. So I think it's kind of falls in with like the camper cabin that the county has, that it has no electricity, no plumbing.
and primitive sites tend to be not, you know, accessed
Yeah, more hike in
hiking,
type,
skiing,
yes.
jogging, biking, whatever. But
And this is the first one that we've had under this language, so
but
we don't really,
I think what we would be looking at is, should we move forward on this conditions, very specific conditions that we may want the applicant to write and provide to us to our satisfaction. So we're not coercing you into making those. But I'm just throwing that out as a thought, not anything further at this point. But it's got to be understood what it is. And I know from what you're saying, a lot of the concern I've seen in all of the comments I've received have been people envision this as Winnebago's big motorhomes parked, you know, or trailers, and that's not what we intended in the forestry district either. So
We never intended that.
okay, so that's all I have for right now.
What I would like to know is, so some of these sites are gonna be permanent and some are not gonna be permanent?
No, just permanent. So we're trying to, they're supposed to be under 500 square feet, correct? So that's what we're trying to do, just have a permanent, it's gonna be sitting right in that spot.
So then you'll be, renting these sites out like on a weekly basis, or are they seasonal?
No, weekly. So let's say someone wants to come for 2 or 3 months, it goes small. It's not seasonal. No, it's not that someone can come and live there for 2 months.
What about, you said your family was gonna do it too, aren't they gonna be staying there?
No, we see, I wish I had that much time. We don't, but no, we're all in work, we're all busy. If we ever get a chance to come once in 3 months, that would be great. But no, it's not living units where you can come and live for a month or two. No.
Who's gonna be overseeing the property?
My mom does not work, my wife doesn't, it's all sit-home moms. That's the plan. Get the motor.
And then you live up here then? So who's going to be overseeing these people coming in and out every 2 days?
That's still in plan to do, so we're gonna start with our power and probably just us. And we can always hire, if we see that it gets busy, we can always hire. someone to do.
Any other questions?
I show in the application and on the drawing, you know, on the application of the drawing, it shows tents. So we're just clarifying that you're planning on, you know, permanent structures. It also shows like a sauna and a hot tub, you know, in a parking area. So, I mean, maybe it's more of a question for Jason. What is the definition of primitive?
What is the definition of primitive? Let's read.
I mean,
what the
sauna, hot
code
tub, and-
says.
There are some standards I remember, but I can't quote them.
Yeah, I just gotta get to them here.
I guess while he's.
Camping
okay.
type. Oh, well, rustic primitive means camping is defined in ATCP 79.27. So let me go find that. A rustic campsite, let's see, shall be located a minimum of 500 feet from a designated parking area, a road for motorized access, or a non-rustic campsite, a camping cabin, a tourist rooming house, or any other building structure located within the campground. There may be no more than one rustic campsite per acre. The minimum distance between each rustic campsite shall be 400 feet unless a variance is approved by the department. The operator shall require the camper to carry garbage and refuse out of the rustic campsite. A rustic campsite may be designated and provided with a campfire ring. That's pretty specific.
What was the part about parking?
A rustic campsite shall be located a minimum of 500 feet from a designated parking area. So they would just have to make the parking, so you gotta walk 500 feet to your campsite, I guess.
And on the drawing, I don't see measurements unless it's on a different page. I mean, where you currently have the sites, are those 450 feet between them?
Yeah, we don't have any sites, of course,
Okay.
set yet, but there's plenty of room, plenty.
With it being 80 acres, that would.
There's
Right.
room.
That was what I was pointing out, but this is a sort of a concept plan, but not a
Yep.
detailed plan that we're looking at here. And I think we would need a little more information to know what we're doing.
I agree with that.
So as far as the sauna hot tub, is that kind of a different thing? I mean, because that's not part of a rustic campsite. So is that just, there happens to be a sauna and a hot tub that they could potentially use?
Well, it doesn't say you can't have a
No, I think
hot tub or
what
sauna.
the state code does is differentiate between a rustic campsite and a campsite.
Yeah,
You know, you could have a campground of some of each potentially under the state code. And we don't say that you can only have rustic campsites county in forestry, but we don't say that we also say that they need to meet certain specific standards. Meaning only temporary sites as opposed to seasonal sites.
These aren't temporary sites.
No, but the camper cabins aren't, but they're rustic. You know, you could have the mix, but you have to meet that 500-foot primitive standard. With a let's say, 5 rustic sites, and then could have 10 tent sites, for example,
So you're not gonna have roads running all over through there.
right?
Cause it says only temporary camping units, except that you can have camping cabins and yurts.
Under the rustic
Yes.
condition.
So they don't have to be temporary units, they could be a camper cabin
Or the-
or a yurt.
Is there a requirement for electricity?
You can't have
You
electricity.
can't have electricity.
Son,
Well, at the units, you can't have electricity and plumbing in the units.
because they're no longer primitive.
Yes.
you have to have showers also.
I think doesn't, I don't know,
That's a state,
the state has some requirements on how many sites you have, I think.
you have to have, if you're under 20, if my memory is right, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in this
I think that would be
ATPC.
burned into my brain, but it is not.
So is it generally like a privy?
Privy yeah, that's what the county forest has, is a privy. You know, you could have, theoretically, you could have the National Park Service, some places in the country has walk-in sites where they have composting type units, which are similar to privies, but where you have bedrock and other reasons you aren't gonna dig a hole. But that would, a non-plumbing system is, I think, what we'd be talking about there.
So essentially, at some point, if this were to go forward, that would be part of the requirement that they have to meet all of those standards.
Yes, exactly.
How about hauling garbage out? They just have to haul it out from their site to,
I would envision a dumpster,
Parking area.
parking area with dumpsters by it. That's kind of what rustic camping is right now with state campgrounds. They have a dumpster usually where you park, carry your stuff out, throw in the dumpster.
The staff, I think this is no portable toilets.
Yeah, with portable toilets, we don't want the, Jiffy Biffies,
Like,
yeah, satellites parked all over the place. But a privy is not a portable toilet. That's an actual permanent type. Like we have at the camper cabin the county has. It's not a satellite. It's an actual toilet.
yeah, I think our intent with the way we wrote this was to not chill the ability of someone to emulate the county forest. Or the county forest to add a couple more, but it wasn't, it's not intended to be a seasonal campground either.
It is kind of a model.
If we're done with the applicant, we can open the public hearing.
Trying going over this on the no portable toilets or transfer type septic systems allowed. Must have either permitted privy or a bathroom facility connected to a permitted out. What do you mean by that, Jason?
So no satellites, no transfer tanks. Those are those portable, like 100 or 200 or even 30-gallon ones on wheels that they park underneath a camper usually. And then pump it or haul it off site. So we don't allow those. So it'd either be a privy, which would be like a little building with either a vault or a pit privy or
Basically an outhouse.
an outhouse. Or if they wanted to have like a bathroom building, they could probably have one for the whole facility, probably by the parking
What
area.
about the satellite case?
No, we don't want those. That's like the plastic ones that the construction workers use. We don't want those. Cause always you gotta be able to drive to it to service it. So if you tried to put it next to each one.
And also there's a issue of where does it go?
Yeah,
You know, that
yep.
you want treatment on site if you can possibly do it. It can be by composting theoretically, gravelless or plummingless, systems like composting, incinerating, toilet type of thing where you had power if you weren't gonna have plumbing. But if you're gonna have a building with plumbing, then you'll have a septic. Or a big holding tank that would be serviced by a provider and monitored by the county. So we have one of those alternatives. What we would see.
And then it said the fleet map must be completed.
Yep, so that's our requirement, that once the campground's built, we usually require, all other campgrounds, we require them to have a map when it's all done. Showing where every site is, all the roads, sewer systems, whatever they have, so it's basically like an as-built.
Would have the distances, like Ms. Anderson wants.
Yeah, but it'd be after the fact, after it's been approved and built.
Hey, are there any other questions of the applicant? If not, I'll open the public hearing for CUP 2403 campground. At the people that want to make comments have 3 minutes. I am, right? Give your name and address.
My name's Don Syrian. I live just on Old City, Jimmy Carter Road. I lived there about 37 years. And so far, we've seen no respect from these guys with the campgrounds. They're doing what they want to do when they want to do it. And my greatest fear is fire danger. We're in a high fire danger area. It's posted on 2 intersections from the DNR. I've gone by there multiple times and they've had fires going, nobody's around. I'll come back, I get the township, and then they come back and then somebody's there, so they're not paying attention what's going on out there anyways. So as far as I'm concerned, I think if you get this cut permit, it's just gonna go all off and we ain't gonna be able to control nothing out there. And the peacefulness is gonna go away, so that's my opinion. I'm against it and I hope we don't get it in, but thank you for your time.
Next, please. Please state your name.
I'm Heather. We live on the back side of their campground.
What's your last name?
Paul.
Okay, thank you.
Brian Martin. And there's farms on the back side, which is his right there. He's already had issues with them taking down his fencing that hold his cattle in. We've had issues with them racing up and down the road, almost hitting our kids. And when we say something, they yell at us. I have talked to him personally and he said, well, if there's issues with people that are camping on his land, we could just call him. Okay, well, what good is that gonna do when you're hours away? They've already built the campsites, done the clearing. They put a driveway through our neighbor's property without consent. This has been nothing but a headache. We have our property out there for the peace and the safety of our kids, our family. And the campground's not even in and we're already having safety issues all the time. We do not want. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Cheryl Rust, and I live on Bucktail Drive. I'm right connected to their land. I'm fenced in all the way around. I have 10 acres. I do have beef cattle. I don't think they've ever taken down fences, but I talked to their dad. He came to my house and told me he was going to put in a family cabin. Well, then after that, I had heard they were going to put in a racetrack. So I heard him working down there. So I drove down there and asked him. He said, no, it's a cabin. He said, I do use the 4-wheeler when I haul wood. And I said, I use it to check my fences. So that's fine with me. Then after that, he asked me how deep my well was. So I went home to find out because my husband passed away. So I really didn't know. So I asked my son to find out how deep it was. I heard him working on the north end of the property. So I drove in there. He completely gutted that end. It's an 80-acre chunk. He did the 40 acres in the front. The back, I think, is still in tree service, I thought. And it's right next to a swamp. And people come up and they drive on them roads and wreck them. They go into that swamp and spin around. I just don't want anybody up there. The fire danger is unbelievable. You can be there one day and it's green, but in that sand, if you get a light wind and the sun, it is dry in like 2 days. You could walk on it and it crunches. I just can't see them having fires and parties and how would I get my cattle out? I have cattle in there, beef cattle. How would I get them out if their friends start a fire? And exactly, I want to know what kind of campground this is. Is it for, he told me at the meeting, at our township meeting, it was for a lot of family members. Is it a campground? Is it a refugee camp? What is it? We need to know that. Garbage, all of it. There's so much involved in this. I've lived there for 40 years. I don't want to see it change. There's already a lot of people there that there was nobody there hardly when we moved there. So I hope you don't approve it. Do it in an area where there's nobody around. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Kurt Stanzi. I'm also an adjacent property owner. So we made a petition and I think that you folks got copies of this. There's 107 signatures. I'm gonna kind of stick to my reading here because I find the time limited. I believe that you committee members are charged with protecting the county's best interests and also the best interests of its residents and property owners. I'd like to pose a question to the committee here. If you serve the greater good of Burnett County and also its landowners, and more specifically today, the good people of Anderson Township, who are you serving if you were to approve the CUP when most of Anderson Township people are opposed to it? A lot of the points I had here are mentioned already, and there's going to be more mentioned, I'm sure. But here are some comments that I heard from residents as I went around and got signatures on my permit. I quote, "I don't want a commercial entity here on the Barrens. It would take away from the reason that we moved here and come here. Excess traffic and noise, which you've heard and can imagine. This is not only wildland, it's also a large spread out residential area. Why would a commercial entity be allowed to set up right in the middle of this?" Again, deer hunting was mentioned. It's a huge deer hunting area. And anybody that has a stand that has been there for 10, 20, 30 years, where these folks want to build a building site, now they'd have to get permission to go to their stand that they've been going to for years, which can happen anywhere that a house is built for sure. But still, I mean, numerous campsites along this border could impact many people. One person said, "What's going to be next in our neighborhood with this kind of progress? A Quick Trip or Dollar General right there on the corner of Olson and Jimmy Carter?" Keep commercial business in the business corridors, not back in the Barrens. And more importantly, I find in the Anderson Township minutes, in their comprehensive plan, it says that their important issues and opportunities are to maintain the town of Anderson's Northwoods character and quality of life. 1.2 of the plan summary states top issues and opportunities as identified by the planning committee and town citizens include protection of the natural resources and rural character. Also noted in 1.2 is protecting the natural environment. 1.3 of the Anderson Town Vision states ensure that one's freedom does not harm or impact the town or other property owners negatively. I think that you can kind of get the drift here that a lot of folks think this is going to be negative. And if you think it's going to be negative, I just feel like it is. It's not ramped up or going to maybe be. Another
Time's up.
My name's Scott Nielsen. My wife and I own property adjacent to the here Chenix here. Previously submitted email and letter to you guys, and I appreciate your consideration there. My objections are similar to everybody else's: noise, lack of policing at the campground by the owner, let alone by our county policing, fire, lack of fast service, crime, theft comes drugs with some of this stuff, road safety. We just talked about some of the constraints around the campground. Where are they gonna park? Well, right now, it almost looks like they're gonna have to park on the road to walk in. That's a pretty busy road on Jimmy Carter with people screaming down there at 50 miles an hour. Lack of camper ownership, the people who come up here, they don't have any ownership to our area. I'm sure you'll hear more. I'll keep my time short. As they said, the care tenants, they haven't been forthright with us. Everything you hear changes. It changed it before the town board meeting. It changed during the town board meeting. It's changed after the town board meeting. Land improvements have already been started. They had talked about 1 unit, 5 units. Now it's 15 units. They said at the town hall, they wanted 25 units. They put in electricity. What's this used for if it's not improved camping? I was contacted by them themselves for a well driller, so they plan on drilling a well there. I don't know if that's completed yet or not. I fear the story's gonna change again, and I think it's gonna turn into a racetrack where the campers are gonna come four-wheelers. And I think that there's gonna be a lot of tearing up and down, and our community safety is really gonna be hindered by that. Thank you for your time. I object, by the way.
I'm Larry Meixner, MEIXNER. And three of us have owned a property about a 4 mile away on Olson that we hunted for years. When Anderson Township put the 80 acres up for sale, we bought 20 as a buffer so that we didn't end up with several houses and the problem with that we can't hunt our land. Part of that land abuts the property in question. And we went up there and found out the 2-lane or 2-rut sand road that had been used for logging was suddenly a major driveway. It looks like you park a semi on it, the backfill that's in there, the size of it and such. I am an engineer, so naturally. And that property does not reach Olson Road. We actually have a strip between Olson Road and the property, and they dug that up and put in the backfill. There's also 2 large pillars for a gate. We aren't sure whether that's on their property or on ours. You'd have to get a survey. It's that close. And so I'm very opposed to this. They have never been forthright. We did not know anything about this construction until we saw it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Searing Lucken.
The area that Mr. Francis is proposing to build a campground. I'm coming from a different angle because of the unknown. My specific comment or question is, what type of campground is he proposing? Is it primitive camping, tents? Is it recreational vehicles? Is it tiny homes, cabins, or pods? If there's 15 units, does each unit have its own water sewer system? Has that aspect been worked out? My biggest concern, though, is could this possibly be a resettlement campground? That's why a specific answer needs to be given. What kind of a campground has been proposed? There's a lot of speculation floating around, and a clear answer needs to be given. That's why don't grant the CUP until it is entirely clear what his intentions are and exactly how the campground will function or be used. I'm asking this question because I've attended several meetings in past months pertaining exactly to this issue. Refugee resettlement. Dunn County, Chippewa Falls, St. Croix County is dealing with it at this very moment. Polk County has held multiple meetings on this issue. Dunn County actually just won a moratorium 2 weeks ago on the establishing of a refugee settlement. People are not against the refugees, but are worried about the cost. Taxpayer money ends up funding the cost once the foundations, churches, or NGOs get paid. There's a lot of information from these other counties, and it needs to be researched before a conditional use permit is granted. I don't know if this is Mr. K's intent, but I certainly want to get the information out there. I'm assuming, and we all know how that could end up, but here's some information I found. NPR News and Sahan Journal reported more than 900 Ukrainians have arrived in Minnesota since 2022. California is the only other state that has resettled Ukrainian refugees. They have established a Ukrainian American Community Center in Northeast Minneapolis. More than 8 million Ukrainians have been displaced by the war with Russia, and the federal government does not notify states when Ukrainians arrive. They gain entry through humanitarian parole status through Uniting for Ukraine and are required to have a person filed to be a supporter for them upon arrival. It has been reported that as of 2023, 2,700 applications have been filed by people in Minnesota. Upon arrival, they access federally funded services through the Department of Health and Human Services. That's taxpayer dollars. The Twin Cities is the nation's top metro area for Ukrainian refugees, supported by Welcome U.S. Refugee Program. Please take all this into consideration before granting the CUP. Thank you.
I hope you could hear that okay. It's awful quiet.
Not very well.
Can I use one of those? I'll replay it. I heard it.
Yeah, that might be an option.
Next.
Norm, we have Ryan online.
Name's Dave Carter, former campground owner of Harris Climac Resort for 23 years. I think there's a time and place for everything. I truly believe in campgrounds. Sections of this county where campgrounds work out great. In the northern parts of the county. Exactly where these guys are moving, I'm not too sure. There's no lakes. There's a St. Clair River quite far away. You know, just being that little perimeter that they want to be in their 80 acres to explore it really wouldn't take all that long for people that are camping there for a couple of days. My questions about this is his full intentions. He mentions that they're not going to be on site. According to the ordinances in the county, there needs to be somebody living there. You can't just come up and spend time. You mentioned that, well, then maybe we'll have to hire people, which would probably mean you'd have to pay more money to expand and probably have to make more sites. My worry on this proposition is within 3 years, he could have really nobody out there, not even use the property. 3 years from now, he comes back to you people, wants to make an expansion and say, look, we've had no fires, we've had no problems with the law. Very quiet campground. Pretty hard for you to say no, you know, with all of the concerns of the people here, say, well, you know, this is true. Probably would pass at that point. Far as the privies and all that, that's all great. My understanding is anybody that would have a self-contained unit, you wouldn't require a privy or any type of running water. If you're camping, you must have a running water so they can wash and annual inspection by the health department of Wisconsin from Claire. I think there's time and place for everything, guy. I don't see you making any money and you're bringing any money into Anderson Township or the county. Most people going out to buy groceries, they're gonna go down to Polk County, the Menards Marketplace. I wish you all luck. I bought an existing campground. To go out and try to start something new, you know, for pure pleasure, you're not even gonna live there to experience it. It's a lot of work, partner. A lot of work. Trust me. To do it for love and not profit. I mean, there's really no, you know, 13 campsites. A couple months a year. I see more to that in your mind, what you want to do and what's really being laid out at this time. So at this time, I would probably have to say no to any type of campground on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that wishes to make a comment? If not, we'll go to
We have Ryan on the phone.
pardon me?
We have Ryan on the phone.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
You on there?
Hello?
Go ahead and
Can you
make
hear
your
me?
comments. State your.
I'm Ryan Roblin. I live right off our River Road near the campground. And most of my concerns that I'd like to voice have already been brought up, but I would just like to reiterate them. What's gonna be done with the additional traffic? What's gonna be done with the dust on Jimmy Carter there, since that section is gravel? Seems like it'd be pretty dusty for everyone around. How will the sanitation and waste be handled? What kind of impact will that have on the environment around it? And then for the camping season, is there gonna be like a set camping season date where it be closed during the winter, maybe? I don't know. And then is there gonna be like a max stay limit, so you can't just live there year round? And is there gonna be a 24/7 camp caretaker on site in case issues arise? Also, the campground proposed is gonna be right next to private property. What will be done to keep campers on the campground and not trespassing onto the private property next to it? And then, since it's in a residential area, what, if it is going forward, what kind of flight hours will there be? Then what's the desire or attraction to have a campground there if it's in the wilderness, but it's not because it's pretty much well developed now with the roads and stuff put in. Thanks for your time.
That's the only one we had.
Yes, that was the only one.
I will close the public hearing at this time. And if any questions from the committee members that they wish to emphasize or call back to the applicant?
Are there dates that he has to be, I know on some campgrounds, they can only be open for, what, 6 months?
8 months.
8 months?
is what the state law says.
Is it the same for this?
Well, I think the state law says 8 months continuous, right?
Right.
I believe if there's one day where it's
Yeah,
not used, then the 8 months starts over again, I believe, is how the state applies that rule.
that was changed, as you know, like, 2017.
Yep.
About, used to be 4 months, I think, was doubled to 8, arguably to make it easier to regulate, which was sort of like, I'm not gonna give my analogy on that, but anyway. The point is that it allowed the seasonal campsites to be occupied for 2/3 of the year continuously. And then the campers could be stored on the campground when they weren't there. And if they left for more than a day, their 8 months starts again based on the interpretation of the state agency that regulates it, because it's an impossible to regulate thing, truthfully. They can't regulate it either. We can't, because we're not allowed to unless we assume their entire program, which we can't convince Washburn County to join us to do. And we certainly can't do it on our own. I am speaking only for myself, and I'm not making a motion at this point, but I'm not prepared to make a decision on this. For sure not in favor of it today, because we do not have enough detailed information. I'm not sure about if there's a road that trespasses on somebody else. Looking at the maps, it certainly could be. It hasn't been resolved to the best of my knowledge yet. So at a minimum, I would want to put this off and see a plan that had a little more, not necessarily survey quality, but a little more understanding of what's going to be primitive, what's going to be a campsite with a portable camper. But at the same time, I'm not a big fan of postponing these things if it's an inadequate application. I'm not sure I want to even deal with it anymore. That's just me.
I have a concern with the no one on site. They're gonna have people coming in and out and only staying a couple of days. Then somebody's gotta be there to police it. And if the parking lot's gotta be 500 feet from anything, they have to park there and leave their vehicles there for the amount of time they're in the campground. That leaves a primary spot for panels that like catalytic converters.
Well, you raise a good point. One other point. I should have said this too. But the foundational aspect of a conditional use permit is that it's a permit that may be permitted at some places in the district, but is not suitable necessarily for everywhere in the district. If it was, it wouldn't be a conditional use permit. You could just do it wherever you wanted to. A permitted use, you can build a home anywhere you can meet the requirements. Conditional use permit implies there are issues that need to be managed and watched, and avoiding detrimental effect on adjoiners and evaluation effects, all those sort of things. That's is and has always been a foundation of a conditional use permit. There's some legislative actions that require there to be sound basis for decisions, both approving and denying them. So, you have to have it can't just be because more people are opposed than are for. It's no longer a basis to say you can't have that permit. That's under state law, not us. But again, your concern is another good one. There, from a ATV, UTV point of view, there is no way to connect to the Burnett County Trail System from Anderson without driving on public roads. It's an island. You could connect into the Polk County system pretty easily, driving on public roads. And you're talking a huge number of people, but you would no doubt have ATV, UTV users there. So,
It's pretty close to that new loop they're making in Sterling Township,
right.
which is for recreational use.
But remember, when Polk County asked us to come into their network into our county, natural resources, we felt it was of no real benefit to Burnett County and potential enforcement issues. Our rec officer is an hour away from where he's working in Blaine or Webb Lake to this site, or any site in Anderson. So Anderson is on its own sort of, in a way. If Anderson hadn't opened up the town roads for ATVs and UTVs, there would be nowhere to ride in Anderson except on your own property. So no trail system. So there are warts on this thing, I think, personally.
But the town roads are open and part of county road O is also open.
Right. So that's the system in Anderson.
Any other questions from the committee?
I have a question for the app.
Go ahead. Applicant, please come forward.
Yeah, there's correspondence, says, just was sent to Jason Town. Subject, this was sent on Friday, the 9th of February, 10:57 a.m. from Mark Karachnetz. And subject, online form submittal, contact us. Towards the end of that, first of all, do you recall sending this?
Which
It's dated Friday, the 9th of February.
can't remember, if you can read a little bit.
Sure. Starts out, hello, Jason. I understand that most of the people who are messaging you and who will attend at the meeting will be against anything that anyone would like to do out
Yeah, I
there.
believe it.
Okay. Yeah, towards the end, there's, it says, we're not asking for rezoning. We're in the proper zone of what we're requesting a cup for. Okay. We're going through a mandatory formality on listening to all the neighbors. Then it says the neighbors are not friendly and even evil and stubborn. We did a barbecue party and invited over 50 people to come over and get to meet us. Many showed up, many didn't. Our neighbors, we'll have to wait and find out that we are great neighbors to be. I'm glad that you invited the neighbors over for the party and all of that. I'm just wondering, where it says the neighbors are not friendly and even evil and stubborn. What's that all about?
The first meeting where I was. If only you could, I mean, I never experienced anything like that, first of all. Second of all, there was a guy who threatened us with a gun. He mentioned that he has guns, so be careful what you're wanting to do here. I think that's very evil. And many people mentioned a lot about alcohol, which have, I think, well, I shouldn't say half, but 30% of them came under alcohol influence. And we had neighbors who threw garbage on someone's property to seem like we did it. To me, it's ridiculous anyway. So I think it's pretty, I mean, I never done anything in my life. I've seen it in movies and I've seen it with our neighbors. So I said what I said. Well, first of all, because the guy threatened us and mentioned it that he has guns and be careful what you're doing. I think that's pretty. I did not say all neighbors. We have plenty of awesome neighbors and I've talked to many of them. Great. So I should have said some. So that's the only thing I would change in my work.
Thank you.
I'm also an owner. Can I have a minute? My name is Bob. Mark is my brother. We do it together. On the first day when we just bought this land, we came. Gentleman right there came, and he loves you all. He told me who you are, all of you, how much he hates you, and I know who started this.
Excuse me.
Who's it? You.
What did I say?
Yeah, how much you hate and everybody and who is who.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he called me and asked if he can drive ATV with his granddaughter. Well, no, first thing he said, a lot of people not gonna like you for closing this because we like to go through this property. And when I told him that we're gonna start cleaning up, he can drive through it, he told me he's gonna regret it. And I know where it's coming from. And we were just trying to, we're a Christian family with the Christian, we're trying to do a Christian camp. We don't drink. Everybody left, they think this is not possible. This is not possible in 2024. We never drink. Not a single drop of beer. We're not drinking community or family. This is mainly we're trying to do for yes, it's mostly gonna be for our community, our Ukrainian community from our church. We don't drink. People gonna come and use it. Gonna use just on some days. And like you said, you mentioned that nobody's gonna be there. We're not gonna be there 24/7, but if somebody's gonna be staying there, somebody will be there. Always when somebody's gonna be staying there. I'm sure this place is gonna be locked down for the most part of the thing.
Could I say something, please?
No.
You know what?
No.
Nobody hates them. Can't?
Already had the public.
I'm sorry. We brought UTVs once. It was once. Once. He pulled me over. Cussed me out. With your nephew, 10-year-old. With my, no, he barely could stand it. He was so drunk.
Excuse me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, of course, nobody's.
Lying.
Addressing the committee, not each other, people. Gotta address the committee only, not each other.
Committee have any
Address the
comments,
committee, not each other.
questions?
So at this point, if I'm hearing Craig right, to consider either approving or denying this, we would just need more information.
From speaking for myself, I don't have enough to approve this. The lack of what I have is enough to deny it, but
Right.
not to approve it.
I agree with Craig. I don't have enough information to deny. I don't have enough information to approve.
Any other comments from the committee?
I just wanna, just one quick comment.
Go ahead, Andy. Randy,
Yep,
finally awake.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say the contention between the applicant and the town is extremely bothersome. And I don't, whether we accept it or decline it, there's going to be that contention there. And part of me wants to tell both of them, to try to work this out. I don't know if that's possible, but I would be more likely, and I think the rest of the committee would be more likely to approve something if the town of Anderson came back and said, you know, we've sat down, we've worked out our differences, we've given them some conditions, they've met all the conditions, you know, maybe not everybody gives it a thumbs up, but the majority of the town is now giving it a thumbs up. I think you're more likely to get something approved by the committee or even a rezone by the township that could make this work. My 2 cents.
We did receive the letter from the town clerk, I believe, right, Jason?
Yeah.
That they met back in December. They were not in favor, but they were going to be meeting before we had the meeting today, but we've not heard anything from the town from a meeting that they had.
Correct, yeah, I don't have any correspondence from them other than what was done
That was back in December.
December, November, December.
So we're still waiting on that follow-up.
I don't know if they're gonna have a follow-up.
Yeah, I don't either. The town chair, also the housing, Vernon County Housing Authority Director. I sit on that board. And I had asked him if there was anything new from it, and he had said, no, not yet. So that's all I got. I'm not carrying their message. I did ask him when I saw him last, a week or two ago, because I knew this would be coming up. So.
For the work that they've done already, did they need permits and do they have them?
We don't require permits for roads, or electric install or well install. DNR regulates wells.
Cause they got some pretty impressive roads in there.
Well, and I did refer, or I did send an email to Ruth King about, cause you have to get a stormwater permit if you open more than 1 acre of land. And, but again, that's not a county item that we deal with, that's a DNR one. So I referred it to Ruth. I just said, hey, you want to look at this site, see if it meets the requirements or not. And I haven't heard back from the DNR other than I'll take a look at it is when I got back. So
it's more of a silt or disturbance leaving the project area.
Yeah.
Concern.
Yeah.
So it's probably easily permitted if it needs one.
Yeah.
Regardless of why they do it, doesn't matter.
But nothing that I've seen that they've done would have required a county permit.
Do you know for sure if this driveway does go across another person's property?
All I can say is based on our parcel mapping, it looks like it does, but parcel mapping is not a survey. So.
And we have no knowledge of where the road was intended to be. It's probably a town road by user rather than a laid out town road. We don't know that either for sure.
Yep.
So there are unresolved issues, I think. So. The matter of moving this thing on for today, and I'm gonna make a motion to deny this permit request today. Recognizing that if they can get their, sit down, figure out how to do this better, they could reapply at a future date. But I really don't want to kick the can down the road. We have had that experience in the past and it was not productive for the committee or the applicant. So, and I have to cite reasons, and the reasons for the denial would be that there may be an issue with a trespass on one driveway access to the property, that there is not a design that is approvable under the requirements of this land use ordinance. And I hesitate to compel them to do a full survey quality design. They need need to follow the ordinance as to what they could do and what they want to do, and they have not made that an adequate presentation to this committee to date. And the potential harm to adjoining property owners in value and concern because of what uncertainty is here is a consideration as well. And I would ask if the committee has any other reasons for that denial to add, go right ahead.
No other comments?
I think somebody would need to second it to make any further debate.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Have a roll call vote. This is to deny the CUP 2403 for
Motion to
campground.
deny.
Pardon me?
So it's a motion to deny.
Yes.
Yes, with the to deny.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
This means that, this one will be denied, and in order for that to do anything more, they would have to start the process all over again, apply for another cup.
Correct.
But they could do that.
They could do that.
Correct.
They would need to address all of these concerns.
So we have already.
You've heard the motion to deny. Have a roll call vote. Mr. Sheminski,
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes,
Mr. Bickford, no. Has been approved to deny the request. We'll move on. Next request is conditional use permit CUP 2404 Baglio camper for 3 years. The applicant. Please state your name.
Sorry, do we need to stay or we can go?
You can go.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone can go whenever they want. It's not mandatory that you have to stay here.
But you're welcome to stay
Yes,
if you
you
want.
can.
We don't need to have swearing. You don't need to have people cussing at each other.
Well, that's, should be etiquette, yes.
Swore at the applicant. Telling him he was an effing liar. The guy that he was blaming is being a drunk. I'm sorry, this is totally off subject, but I lost all respect once I came into a race situation. And that's all I'm saying, period. Sorry to interrupt the meeting.
All right, well, good morning, committee. I'm Diane Baglio, and I won't be swearing. But I am, I own property at 7116 Hill Drive. And I'm here before you to, in hopes of getting an approval on a 3-year conditional use permit on that parcel of property. Probably owned it about 20 years now, almost. It's just about an acre, and it has a travel trailer on it. And I've been using it as just a little getaway place, mostly on weekends. I do live in the Twin City area. And it's just a reprieve property. So I'm before you to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions for the applicant?
did you purchase this from a previous owner of the camper was already there when you?
We purchased it about 20 years ago.
Okay.
And my husband and I, my then husband and I, we had a motorhome, small motorhome that.
I didn't hear you correctly. I thought it sounded like you had only had it for 3 years, but you've had it continuously.
Yeah, I've owned it for about 20 years. I've owned it independently since 2008.
Okay. The reason I asked was we've done this conditional use permit. This is the 4th time, right? That we requested this.
It should be in the staff report, the number of permits.
The first-
I looked and then of course.
So they got a 3-year one in 2018 and then a 3-year one in 2020. So
This is,
this would be years, I guess, 7, 8, 9.
yeah, okay. I went back and found the minutes from 2020, but I didn't back it further than that. And reading that, I knew it was not an initial permit in 2020, so. The point being that we have provided this with an intent that we want people to be able to use their property when they get it and have time to get to the building of the dwelling, but we don't really want to see them perpetual campsites either.
The site does have a well on it, and I put in a 2,000-gallon holding tank on it. And it's been kept up and maintained, and I'm not at a level of building yet.
But you see what's happened is because of camper's personal property, the only improvements that you're supporting infrastructure of the county with is the well and the septic and deck maybe. But the revenues generated by having a camper on the site are none for the camper itself. It's not an improvement. It's not a dwelling. It's a camper. If it was a manufactured home, it would be assessed and taxed. But it's not that.
Looks like the assessor has 8,900 for improvement value, so I'm guessing that's probably the septic and the well.
Right.
Maybe the deck.
Maybe the deck, yeah. That's kind of the reason. As a matter of equity for everybody using the infrastructure of the county and town for that matter. That is supported by property taxes.
I do understand that, but if one isn't ready to build yet, and I still, I'm working and.
No, I understand. I mean, it's
there. It sits.
Yeah, I get that.
With a well and septic on it, and it just seems like I've done everything that I've needed to do, and it is just a getaway. And I realize you do want more in the revenue on it, and at some point we will build something on it. But that's why I'm here before you.
Clear, so.
Yes, I do understand that. That's why I come before you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes. Can you tell me what your intentions would be 3 years from now? Like, do you plan to build within the next 3 years?
Well, I'd like to. I would like to at some point at that. I've not really looked into it. It's something I could talk to Jason about as far as just seeing what can go on this property as far as a structure or a small little cabin. I know when I put the septic in, I believe it's coded for like a 2-bedroom. And so I was able to kind of foresee on that. I mean, I'd like to be able to build something within the next 3 years. Is there a guarantee? No, I can't 100% guarantee it, but it is something I would like to look at and to see what I could afford and what I could do. I love it up there. It's a nice little piece of property, and I've kept it up, and it looks great, and it's very well maintained. I have no trouble with the neighbors up there. They don't have any trouble with me.
And I apologize, you may have stated this already, but when did you purchase the property?
It's about 20 years ago.
So you have applied for
personally-
this cup multiple times?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee?
Were there any conditions on that last approval?
No.
No, just a 3-year. There was some discussion about having been applied for before, back in 2020, but no nothing added to the motion.
There are no other questions from the committee. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to make comments?
Good morning, George Costello, resident of the town of Swiss, Cranberry Lake Drive. I stood here 4 years ago when a 3-year cup was approved. Now we've gotten by another year, and we still have a travel trailer on the Yellow River or Loon Creek. Conroy brought up the fact we need the infrastructure, and we're not getting much from a trailer just based on septic and water. The conversation about do you intend to build was the same conversation 4 years ago. With that said, as a resident who was on Minerva Lake in Cranberry, I'm asking that this board deny the conditional use permit for the 3rd time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Any more comments from the committee? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time.
I guess I have a question for Jason. So if it's a conditional use, I mean, what is the purpose? I mean, campers generally or travel trailers generally are not allowed. And so they can apply for a conditional use. But is the intent to continue to renew it or?
That's a decision you guys get to. That's why it's worded that way in the ordinance.
Because it must be in place for some reason.
Well, I think the intention is they don't want, like Craig said, you guys have made the decision, you don't want perpetual camping. And as you're trying to encourage people to build, to help pay for the infrastructure that everyone else is using.
One thing too that probably before you were on the committee, we used to do a conditional use for every single time. And we always approved them for the first 3 years and sometimes for the second. And we decided to take that burden of doing a conditional use off and made it a permitted use for up to 3 years or an additional year, perhaps while someone was building in the process. By permit, through administration. And we now only do the CUP when someone wants for the 2nd or 3rd time, and then we'll consider that. But we're not trying to encourage that. I think that's the way to put that.
In the past, haven't we said that they had to have some form of
Wastewater management?
or at least footings or the start of something being built in order to keep it going.
Well, you guys always talk that, we want to encourage people to build. There is no requirement that they have a certain footings or, any sort of plan into us.
I think what we did was we wanted to assure that there was wastewater.
Yeah, they have to have a septic system in order to get the 3-year permit through our office or the 3-year CUP. They have to have a sewer system.
Right, because we wanted to be confident that things were going, and people do that. They put in a septic adequate for the future capital. And the well is sited to properly supply the future dwelling. That's what you're after.
May I respond to, I guess with this naively, I thought coming before the board every 3 years, it just was kind of a given. I mean, after I put in what I put in, I didn't realize, and especially back then, I wasn't at financially, or I was still working. And it isn't a matter of, it almost seems like, okay, so then after just 3 times, now it's like you're kind of forcing me to do this. And
The minutes from the 2020 meeting say that this might not be approved the next time.
Jason, you're right. I
So
did
it was
read
mentioned
that. I guess I just thought it was more of a formality. You come in and you just say nothing's really changed on it. It still looks the same and it's still, it's beautiful and everything's been fine. I didn't realize that
To a certain extent, nothing has changed on it as part of the
part
problem.
of the problem. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'd be
Well-
willing to give you if we do deny this today, I would say we'd give you this year to get yourself back together. I wouldn't say you have to drag it out of there tomorrow. That wouldn't be my view, but I think the end of the 3-year CUP in my mind is come to a halt.
And in my mind, it is more a matter of equity, because I think, I could be interpreting wrong, but my interpretation would be the intent of it being a conditional use is that it's, it said 3 years for a reason. And just the equity of, contribution to the use of infrastructure. I get it. I get it, but we could have people coming before us in droves to do the same thing if there isn't an intent to do something more permanent.
Exactly.
Then we're not really serving our taxpayers to the best that we could.
So if I had a travel, like more of a motor home, that could come in and out of that site.
Well, you can only have a camper for up to 30 calendar days per year without a permit.
So Jason, are you saying then if the drivable camper came in, it could only be there for 30 years or 30 days?
Per
And if
year.
it per year, so if it went out and brought back home and stored
Yeah,
at
so.
home, it wouldn't.
So the reason I think that language is in the ordinance, because that's way before my time, I think that was kind of the thought of that gives you 15 weekends, basically. If someone was out there watching every Friday and Sunday that it's coming in or out. So I believe, because that's when people actually, campers were small and you would haul them home with you. Now they're not that way anymore, so.
That's a big part of it. In the past, the small nature of small campers motivated people that we want to build and get some more room. Now, today's world, you can get a camper that's 400 square feet and a second story, and it's still a camper. It's not our idea, it's the way the state codes have worked out, but how people have, and I'm not singling you out in any way here, but what people have taken advantage of then is having a piece of land, having a large camper and septic and well, and even a small garage, paying minimal taxes and beating the system of the rest of us who could have $100,000 park mile camper that is assessed nothing, and my house isn't worth much more than that. I'm paying a lot of taxes on it. And people have come to that perception. It isn't, just us. I mean, it's citizens say it's just not equitable. That needs to be what you do is join the rest of us under the burden of supporting the infrastructure we need.
So could I ask the committee then to give me for this year and next year by summer, as far as getting, people are gonna have to come out there, I'm gonna have to line up people. It's hard to get people to do the actual work, more or less, and I'll have to be talking to you, Jason, and we'll go through what can be put on there and what can't, and
Right,
I mean,
I think
it's
that,
a lot to take in. It's a lot
I think
to
we
do
can
with
make
this.
it an enforcement action that allows you some time. That would be what I would say. If we deny it today, then Jason would tell you it's been denied and you'd have a period of time where you could appeal that decision, and then you'd have a period of time you would get to do it. And I think if you were in a position to apply for a land use permit for a structure in a while, then the camper could remain while that was being done. Okay, I think we could work a way out to make it so it isn't just like we're gonna come out there and make you hook onto it tomorrow. I don't think we're gonna do that here, but
That's not how we operate
I would hope
zoning.
not.
We're pretty,
I would hope not.
I think
give
we-
a lot of warning.
I think we wanna move this along, okay? That's what I think we're trying to say.
I just so you can give me ample time, and I don't think by getting it, off or out of there, even by this year, and if something's being built, it would be nice to be able to keep it there. And if that's in the workings, right, I would go through you.
Yep.
So my understanding would be if it were denied and there'd be like an allowance of a year to get it off. But in the meantime, if you applied for additional conditional use because you were going to do something else, then that would be our reconsideration at that time.
No, I was saying the land use permit, we have a provision, I think, don't we? You can have a camper or a mobile home up for a year
Well,
while you're building.
It's not written
Okay, just
anything
been
in there, but
okay.
we
I'm-
generally
I'm
allow
policy-
people.
Policy versus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could say, I could see a motion denying this conditional use permit, but granting her 1 year to get into compliance or something
Well,
like that.
Would that be better off just to make a motion to approve, but not have it be 3 years?
Well, approved for 1 year
Or
and then
2
that's
years
it.
Even two, if you did 2 years and then,
I'll leave that up to another committee member. I'm okay with us doing something that is an end period, dead black answer.
I'd be hesitant without a plan to just tack extra years on. But, I mean, I like the idea of a year, but is there gonna be anything different in 2 years?
Will be, I do plan on going in to
Well,
Jason and talking
I
to
think
see
we
what
just-
can be done.
Whatever we do, I think there has to be some
In realizing-
action moving forward that shows that you are going to do something.
I will say this, having tried to get some work done on my own house, it took me almost a year to get new siding. Okay, the guys around here who do stuff are really busy. Maybe a contract or some kind of, documentation you're proceeding. But it's gonna take a while. Even if you went out the door today to start, it's gonna be a while before you're gonna be able to pound nails. I know that.
I'm just
Could
trying to say, how
we,
do you- Go ahead.
could we accept or approve this conditional use permit with the stipulation that another one will not be approved? So you've got 3 years to figure this out, end of story.
I think we've already done that
Yeah.
and nothing's happened. So
Here's the other side of that. We can't compel a future committee.
Right.
In 3 years, none of us might be here. Right? So you don't wanna make any, and this is a very minor version, but county boards, county committees are reluctant to commit future county boards to things that are of consequence. So I think we'd be talking a year to get something going, and then maybe another year to get it done, type of thing. But
After this conversation, George, the town has a question right now, and I guess I'd like to hear from the town.
This is not the town speaking. This is George Costello, resident. This should have been done a year ago. So the applicant's already bought 1 year into this. Because the conditional use permit expired a year ago. And now we're talking another year, so she's basically getting the 3-year conditional use permit as I'm seeing this. So a year's already gone. And I would believe by the end of 2024, something needs to be done. That's all I'm saying, because the extra year has already been had. Thank you.
the permit that she has right now runs out when?
I ran out last year.
Already expired.
We just made it go
on an
1 year
application you
longer to
applied
give her a little bit more time. Is that what we did?
Well, it's because we don't have enough staff to babysit every CUP and
Think
violation.
like that we needed to deal with.
And I really did, I called right away in December in my mind, and I should have pulled my file out. And it was due to my error, and I did call him right away in December and say, I'm due, which I usually would come in February, March. Cause I
Well-
take off work and then come in and
Yeah, and then
come to the
and then
meeting.
it's not on you that we didn't tell you sooner, so we're not.
No, but
holding you.
I should have done it the year before and I
Right.
didn't, and I had some
But
things
the
going
truth
on.
is, the answer would have been the same.
There.
It's not because you're a year over, it's that. that
But
as
I
these
do,
things-
I do hope the committee allows me enough time to get this rolling and to get into Jason and set something up and to have looked at and get a contractor and it does take time. So I would hope that you would give me that.
Have you done anything at all in the last year?
Haven't. I kept naively thinking I just keep coming in and because everything, I have it in such, good place and pristine, looking, I thought you just come in and keep applying naively. Even though it stated that, Jason, you're right. I thought, well, this is just the formality. I will do it. So,
at some point, we have to
Yes.
mean what we say.
well, and two, I mean, you really spelled it out that it comes down to tax dollars and you're paying.
I'm gonna make a motion that we take can approve a 1-year extension of this EUP. And that but that it ends, the CUP expires a year from today. And so you will then have to be in the process of working with getting it out through a building land use permit within our policy of getting it into compliance. But I just know that you can't do it any faster than that, no matter how much I wish you could.
Can't carry it through.
That's a motion? Craig,
Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion in a second.
And I guess I just have questions on the motion or need clarification. So essentially, it's approved for 1 year, and at that point, if she's not moving forward, then she'd be moving it.
1 year from today, the approval date. And then actually that amounts to be a 2-year from the time when it expired anyway, but that's beside the point. It's a 1 year to be underway with building something. That's what it amounts to.
Otherwise, it would need to be removed.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's, so there'll be
Well,
some action at that point.
If in a year she's got application for permit in and whatnot, we have some knowledge when it'll get done. We can let it, Jason will start an enforcement action as long as it's underway.
But if not, then it would need,
Then it
then the
would be-
enforcement action. would
If there's
come.
nothing going on in a year, then a court order will be sought to remove it.
So I do understand that it, after a year, if I don't have somebody to start building it, but I have all the permits and applications in, that's the start of it within the year.
Then Jason,
Is that
you
my
and Jason can
understanding,
work out.
right? Jason?
Yes.
Okay.
You can work that out after that, but we're only granting you 1 more year to get that done,
Okay.
because it's gonna take that long. I know
Okay.
that.
And if we deny it, then hers, it's done right now? Is that correct?
If you denied it, it would be done right now, yeah.
Because she's already had it.
I know, but I know how long it'll take to get the paperwork done even,
Okay, yes.
We have a motion to approve for 1 year from this date. And a second.
I think there was.
Yeah.
Mr. Chemansky,
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
No.
Mr. Payton,
Yes,
Mr. Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Request for 1 year has been granted. Thank you. Certified survey map approval.
Oh, Mark is here, yep. So this is another formality. They should have a copy in their packet. But yeah, if you want a hard copy, I guess.
Yeah, copy or you guys good?
I get mine to Chuck.
It is a 5-pager. You guys only have 2 pages.
Oh, good.
And unfortunately, the person I need to sign it, Kim is not here.
Oh.
So I don't know
Yeah,
when
I
he'll
know
be back.
that. Oh, but we don't know.
You can sign it any We're making
You-
change in the office.
I can sign it on Friday or soon as.
Okay, that's fine. We still have, the town was supposed to meet last month, but they had COVID or there were too many people sick. They didn't have a quorum, so they couldn't sign the meeting, but they're gonna be meeting a special meeting Wednesday so that they can approve it. They've been well aware of it. It's a very, very messy area. The reason for the process is there's an old plat and the roads were square, etc. And as you can see on the map, the roads were not built to where the platted areas were. And so in order to make the properties usable of the lands they have, we vacated the existing streets. I mean, vacated the proposed platted streets and have vacated them and then put in the right of ways that the town agreed to for the road that goes through there as Beach Street and Malone Drive. And so with that process, you can see there's a little island in the middle that's did not get vacated because that's the only part of the roads that's still street. The rest of it is not where it was supposed to be, basically. And what happened is in the bottom corner over here, there was 25 feet that the neighbors, these people's driveway went over Sonny Spafford's property, and that was not part of that property. The field was beyond that, so it was always intended that that was supposed to be part of that. It was not part of the plat. And so that's why we're here, is because we're changing the boundary and adding 25 more feet to the plat. And since we're changing the plat boundary, we were required by law to get the same approvals we had when it was first done in the 1917 or whenever it was created the first time around. So it's a long story for a small piece of property. So
Any questions from the committee?
It's a classic case of what the state law requires, the code to mess with the plat.
Mr. Payton,
Yes,
since you're gonna have to sign it, you got any questions?
I don't.
Thank you. You wish to make a motion to approve it?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, third? All in favor?
I just wanted to point something out for Mark's benefit. Up here at the top, township is spelled TOWHSHIP. You might want to redo that.
Oh, I see that.
I'll have to look and see if the original one was there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Land
That's the kind of thing
services.
You never notice, 'cause you just spin through that part.
Thank you. And then we'll catch up with Jim and set up a time to meet it. It's not pressing because we still have to have the mortgagee from the one owner to sign and the township to sign. We'll probably check
I
with
think
it.
he said he'd be back Friday.
Yep.
So,
And we'll try to meet Jim with you sometime when you have a committee meeting or the county board meeting.
Okay, just get in touch with me. I'll come running.
Okay. And then we might just leave it at Jason's office for signature or whatever
Yeah,
too.
that works too.
I did have one question, and whether, I don't know when the time to do is. I know there's a lot of people here. We did have one question. I talked to Craig and we had made an application to Jason. We
okay.
can talk about future agenda items. I'd like to speak to that if
Okay.
possible.
All right, staff reports, they're in there. Do, parcel mapping, you guys report is in their budget report. It is interesting to see how our year-to-date revenue is almost double what it was last year-to-date. I mean, we've been busy in our office this spring. I think everybody's been submitting permits. We're hoping the May rush has really just been in February. And doesn't continue all the way through.
The mild winter may have contributed to that.
Yeah, I mean, with weight limits already on, contractors are, thinking they're gonna be able to start probably 2 months earlier than. So.
And they're probably right.
Mm-hmm, yep.
And that, the July lulls will be counting on just to catch your breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's nothing out of the ordinary in the budget there. Yeah, permit numbers are in there. yeah, 49 land use. There's already been 21 sewer permits already this year. I think last year we had 2 at this
Yeah.
time. So,
Yeah, usually those are just catching up paperwork that you
Yeah.
already have and
Yeah.
finally got it ready.
yeah, and there, I think there's sewer was put in yesterday, I believe. There's one going in Thursday. So yeah, they're putting sewers in already. There's no frost. So, and
Oh.
then,
Actually, some fairly medium-sized lakes are open.
yep,
You know, it looked like Devils might be half open when I went by it this morning. It's just
yep,
odd.
It's open, sorry.
yep.
Really odd.
Phuket's been open. Phuket's been open.
Won't believe it.
Yeah, so the, contractor should have an extra 2 months of building season this year. So that, whether or not they are happy about that, I guess.
If they can get material.
If they can get materials. and-
Making up for the guys who haven't had any snow to plow.
Yes. Well, then I hear, I talked to some of the builders and like, well, we don't have any guys ready because we have these small jobs lined up for typically March and April, because that's usually when weight limits are on and they can't do anything. So they're like, we don't have guys, if they want to start building in March, we don't have guys ready because we have other projects lined up. So.
I can't count on this being, it's not normal.
Correct, yes. Yep. So, then we did have our new person start yesterday, Grant. So we, that position was open, vacant since October. So that's good. So we're gonna start getting him trained. He, does not have any credentials or, any of that stuff. So, yeah, doesn't have any credentials, so we gotta get him trained in soils and pouts and all those things, so.
Background, does we support that?
Not really, health and wellness degree is what he has college, so.
And there's some of that from the sanitary side.
Yes,
That'd be
from
good.
that side, yes. Yep.
Well, I can teach him to be a soil tester if you need me to help, so.
Well, Kelly, she passed all her tests, so she's gonna work with him too to get him signed up and training, and I think she's going out with him today already to do a sewer inspection today, so. Yep, let's ramp up the training as fast as we can here, so.
The thing about the soil stuff is it's sort of an intuitive thing. That there are people who are soil scientists and engineers who are terrible at it, and people, just can look at the landscape and say, I think I'll look there and it's a good place, it's just, it's not pure training, it's somewhat.
Yeah. It's an
intuitive.
art form. kind
Yes,
of.
yeah,
Yep.
good point, yep.
Future agenda items.
So we have 4 CUPs next month, none of them very controversial at this point that I'm aware of, so.
Mark, why don't you step on up?
We had an application, we actually submitted to Jason and he had it denied because it did not meet the criteria.
Right.
We had a party that came with requesting a campground in a commercial district, existing commercial district, but we only had 8 acres.
Yeah, there's a question of how to rezone it.
Yeah, because the RRRC requires that it has to be 10
Yeah.
acre minimums in order to ask
Yeah.
for that rezone.
When Mark and I talked about that, it's, there may be a way, and I didn't research it though, we'd have to do this. There may be a way to look for a dimensional variance that would be heard by the land use committee. As like before we had the ability to do the density development, they created an undersized lot in the district for a reason. That would be one, that type of thing, if we can see that there's a way to do that. The other, I did it in Washburn, where we kept it RR2 at the town's request, but because of ag land, we allowed the area dimension to drop from 3 acres to 2 or acre and a half or something. The other thing is, of course, is that in order to rezone, we need 10 acres. It doesn't have to be a single undeveloped parcel. You could rezone somebody else's property too, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, well, and I asked if they could somehow get land from the joiner, and that didn't sound like that was.
Yes, definitely was higher value than the whole 8 acres.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but isn't there some adjoining, is there adjoining state property that's not highway right away?
There is actually, yes, there is. The state is one of the adjoining process. And
But isn't that all right away though?
no, it's a retention area for the roundabout.
So if, you know, if we had 2 acres there, even though, see, it's disingenuous to do that, right?
I guess I didn't think of that
But,
option.
but sure, because there's a attorney general opinion out there that for regulatory purposes, and this had to do with combining parcels. We had a battle again in Washburn County over an estate settlement that deeded a whole bunch of the 2 daughters of property that resolved on forestry and the Colton flowage up almost at Hayward, in the middle of the county and land. That our requirement that they sell it in 20 acres because it was contiguous. You know, even though it was already every other 10 acres was different daughters. And that from a regulatory purpose, we could require that because of the density, you know, and continuous ownership of small parcels. So to my mind, it would, seeking a waiver would make more sense than saying, well, we can throw in 2 acres of state land because the state can't stop us. I think it would take a county board or town official petitioning. I don't think I could petition to own the state land as a citizen to rezone it, you know. But I think in the case of a local government, I think that was, and I thought that would be kind of a strange way to do it though. But I did not, what my phone is doing here, it did not, I would rather we not do that. It seems if you're going to, if this is a reasonable place to do this, recognizing that we picked 10 acres as a number, because we didn't want to do spot zoning. But that we would do a public hearing on a waiver request to allow a rezoning of less than that for unique circumstances in that the site is squeezed between state-owned and Oak Burnett. You know, neither one of which should necessarily need to be rezoned for any purpose. You know, that was my way of considering a possible route to do that.
So we don't really have a like waiver type request form. I mean, they have a variance that they can. You know, subdivision variances come to this committee.
Yeah.
Other variances go to the other committee. The
Right,
board
it
of
would be like a subdivision variance, I think.
So how many? Like anything we do, you want to open that can of worms, I guess.
Good question. That was why I said there's a way around it that would meet the requirements. Maybe. How much land does the state own?
They own sizable chunk there, about 5 or 6 acres. They actually is excess right away, but they have the retention pond in that area, pretty close to the boundary, within 50 feet roughly, so.
I don't know if it's state right away, it'd be one thing. If it's state ownership of open space lands, I didn't research any
It
of
was
this.
the entire piece that used to be the crossroads there, which was originally 10 acres, but they took some of that for the highway right away and the roundabout and so forth.
Oh yeah, so WISDOT does own a triangle there of 4 acres that is not part of their right of way plat, not part of their official right of way plat.
So play the game of hyperbole and speculation. That if we were just looking at a map and rezoning a few parcels to a different district, and we didn't know that was state land, we could do that. And the state doesn't care. The state's not going to develop it. The state could care less what it's zoned, right? And that would be the quote marks by the book legal way to do it. And it would get the same result. So,
Now, we always have on our application that the owner signs the application. Because we don't want someone asking for something to be.
except for when this is, and I'm not gonna make this application, but the town might.
Yes.
If the town of Meenan would say, we're okay with this, we would join the petition with the owner of the property and co-sign with them and then recommend rezoning the state land as well, then I think it would meet the criteria.
I could live with that, yes.
Okay, well then let's do it that way.
Just a reminder, this is not on the agenda.
We're just talking about how to put something on a future.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But just a reminder, I'm not picky.
You're right, and we're on the record. And what we're just trying to come up with what is the appropriate way to put something on a future agenda.
We have already talked to the township about it, and they were in favor because it was a commercial zone district. And as you know, in Meanan, everything is 600 feet back, so that does limit the 10 acres pieces because they're only
And
600 feet.
in a way, you know, this is a site where there's a bar there. I don't know if the applicant's gonna keep that or not, but the point would be, it's a softer zoning than the strict commercial that it probably is now. It's a little more restricted form of commercial. And what I thought would encourage me to look at a way to do it was simply that it's commercial, and we don't allow campgrounds in commercial, but we would allow them in a mixed use district. So changing it to a mixed use district is, in this case, whether he puts a campground in or he decided to put some housing with a manufactured home community or something, or, you know, there's more favorable uses than just straight commercial. And so it might be okay to do that. If the town was for it, I'd be fine with the idea. So I guess what I would say is we're not gonna make a decision how to do it today. But it's Mark and Jason to hunker down and look at if this is feasible and if everybody's comfortable with it. And if you are, then we can bring it on a future agenda that way.
That's all I needed for discussion or guidance.
That's right. Like when you and I talked briefly on the phone, I said, this is just off the top of my head, but see what Jason says, see what we can do. Look at how we would go about it. But the particular piece of land in the location where it is, I could see it appropriately rezoned.
Thank you.
If the town would go along with it.
Pardon?
If the town would go along with it.
I think that the town.
We've had preliminary discussions with the
town would probably be favorable. I didn't know that at the time, but that was the point I was making. But, how would you go about this come up?
Yeah, in favor of other places.
No, but it says in their commercial zone plan wise, so.
And before you guys run off, I gotta have you sign the resolutions for the 3 rezones today.
Okay. So anyway, are we, any other future agenda items? I'm asking on behalf of Norm. If there aren't any.
Norm's last meeting.
I know, do you have to meet in April?
No, next.
Next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, April will be his last meeting.
Yep.
I thought you meant this one was. We're not trying to ease him out of here that quick.
No, he's got one more meeting, so.
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. And that's usually election.
Probably longer, 20 years.
You can adjourn if you so wish.
Motion to adjourn.
I make that motion
Second,
from Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
Please.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
I meant to come and talk to you about that.
Oh,
that's fine. Because it was just a brainstorming session. Might be. It has some.